thank you so much to have this opportunity to be here today, and also to meet all the outstanding entrepreneurs as well as executives from various companies. We also have a distinguished group of social entrepreneur leaders here today, which I'm really excited. So I think the first thing that we're going to start is to quick introduction of yourself. Please, Cici.
Not organization, just person?
Yourself and your organization.
Oh,
yes.
good.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm not a leader, I'm a follower. I follow Silicon Valley folks, the bright people here. Yeah, I'm C.C. and I'm one of the founders of APAPA Foundation. It's a grassroots organization that formed 18 years ago when there was 0 elected APIs in Sacramento. Today we have 29 chapters now nationally. We have 60,000 members. And we have helped elect 18 California API Americans to Sacramento and helped 8 more APIs in Congress. And this is talk about entrepreneurship. This is follow Silicon Valley's many people like Sandy Jiao, Xing Kong Kan, those guys, over Vision America and other things. It's grassroots. We talked about earlier, the civic grassroots groundwork. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Margaret Conley, Executive Director of Asia Society Northern California. We have 14 centers around the world, and we focus on bridging, building partnerships, and building bridges across countries and cultures. And we're focused mostly on U.S.-China relations right now. And it's important to me personally because I've lived in Taiwan, in Hong Kong twice, and also in Shanghai.
Thank you, Margaret. Anthony?
Hi, my name is Anthony Yang, Executive Director of Civic Leadership USA. We are incorporated in DC, transplant to California, Bay Area. Started in 2013. We have covered, for the last 3 years, 15 states, 23 cities, all doing civic leadership forum with a single mission to train and connect civic leaders around the country, with most focus on APIA leaders.
Please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Amy Kwok. I'm a physician turned entrepreneur. I'm currently the CEO of PenguinSmart. We're enabling intelligent, individualized rehab therapy services for families, particularly for families with children with developmental challenges. Before PenguinSmart, I was actually working with nonprofits, helping establishing over 200 nonprofits across China to increase their financial stability and information and program transparency, and also built developmental diagnostic apps for developing countries in India, Tanzania, and Mali to ensure the first-line rural health workers to be able to work with families in their in infectious disease as well as general healthcare services. So PenguinSmart right now, we're actually an international team based headquartered in Silicon Valley with offices in Taiwan and Taipei as well as Beijing. Mainly serving families in mainland China with children with developmental challenges with resources from therapists from Taiwan and U.S. and also combining machine learning technology to be able to ensure a very smooth operations and enable optimization for a lot of the information and to really help parents to be at the center of the developmental challenges for the family.
Great. David?
Hi, I'm David Wu, and probably the most important thing you should know about me is that I am a last-minute fill-in, so I will be a humble speaker today. I'm a former 6-term congressman from the state of Oregon, representing what we call up there the Silicon Forest. I've been coming to this area, or spending time in this area, ever since I was a student at Stanford, when there were still apricot trees in the region. And I always wanted to be a tech lawyer, and that's what I was up in Portland, Oregon. And I never ran for office before I won a congressional seat, and I did that in part by modeling the campaign on the tech process. You raise about $1.5 million. It costs more now, you develop a product, which was me, and you develop a distribution network, and in about a year, you have to pass one test, which is to have 50% of the market plus one. And we successfully did that. I went on to serve 6 terms, and I'm very grateful to the people of Oregon to have had that opportunity. Hopefully some of my experiences will be relevant to the topic today.
Well, actually, on that topic, and I think it's important for us to normalize or really kind of establish the basis of social entrepreneurship. So I'm going to start with CC. If you can kind of talk a little bit about what does social entrepreneurship mean to you? Why is it so important?
I was an engineer and a hamburger guy. I didn't understand much about it. But from Silicon Valley friends, Sandy, Xin Gongkan, those guys, guide inspiration. I learned about it. What I learned about it was, you talk about, Andrew Young talk about AI, automation, and Mr. Chen talk about next generation. They all talk about the purpose and the values, not just making money and be automatic, all that stuff. But so we all have the same. I learned about that in my late years, that how important that we give back, build a better society, a better country, better world. That's better for everybody. So we don't fight among each other. We benefit more each other. So by having that's where I learned about it. Now, to do that, we need organization. We need programs. That's why we do 4 programs. 1, pipelines, the waters pipeline, leadership pipeline, like yourself, and the third is appointment to all 3 governments. Last is serve the community. But the government is equally important or more important for social justice and social entrepreneurships and the business and AIs, because they make decisions for us, for everybody. Therefore, I think we feel the AP Americans do have a talent, are ready to be part of the government of 3 branches in America, from local, state, and nationally, and to be leaders in the government, help to make decisions, especially with the rich culture of Asian Americans and talent we have. This is a time we take that responsibility to do that. So with that, we have the programs supported by many, many people sitting here around the country, especially CLUSA USA, those folks, Sandy and Andrew. Thank you.
Well, excellent. Actually, CC is always good. He actually answered my question 2 and 3, combined that together, which is great. Actually, in fact, this is actually a great way, because I wanted you guys to talk about what does social entrepreneurship mean, and maybe you can, and how has that demonstrated in your organization? Maybe you can combine that, Margaret.
Sure. We're all about bridging understanding, and when we look at the headlines, and I wrote some here to read to you to illustrate and underscore how important our work is to us, particularly around U.S.-China and here in Silicon Valley. I'll just read a few of them off to you. MD Anderson ousts 3 scientists over conflicts about Chinese conflicts of interest. MIT recently suspends ties with China's Huawei and ZTE. China rejects unfounded hype after GE spying accusation. China hides identities of top scientific recruits amid growing U.S. security. Department of Justice launches initiative to address Chinese espionage. So I think there's a problem here with the narrative, and it's important for us, and it's our responsibility as our organization at Asia Society to bring people together, to bring the community together, to bring all these viewpoints together and sit at the table and discuss these issues. Because I don't know if they're being represented the way we think they should be, and I'd love to hear from you more on that today too.
Right, actually, that's a really interesting point, because Asian society, interesting enough, started by the Rockefeller family, the richest family, and they actually have, really 3 components of that. One is really business side, because they have some of the most successful business leaders, including Steve Schwarzman, which has just donated $600 million to Tsinghua University to start Schwarzman College, for instance. They have Kevin Rudd, former Prime Minister of Australia. So on the business, also education, and also policy side. So it's really interesting. Now, actually, on that note, David, can you kind of comment on that? Because I think, really, how does social entrepreneurship mean, and specific examples. But I think before that, I want you to comment on the headline that Margaret just mentioned.
About
The headline about
headlines.
exactly just like MD Anderson's, all this kind of stuff, right?
Well, these are very difficult issues from a policy and government perspective, because I think that all of us in the room have suspicions about all these allegations. But I do want to mention that the radio story this morning was that a former CIA agent of Asian descent is pleading guilty to espionage on behalf of the PRC, and he's up for potentially 20 years in prison. So this is a range of things, and it's difficult to prejudge any particular case. However, I do want to mention that I think that it's something positive that came out of the Wen-Ho Lee case. And the accusations against Wen-Ho Lee, when I dug into them, pointed out that there was a perception of discrimination by the Department of Energy employees. And on a survey, Asian employees felt that they were being discriminated against, Hispanics, African Americans. So what I did was pass an amendment so that the Department of Energy would have to file a report with Congress every year about their progress toward anti-discrimination. So that is a way to squeeze out something that is truly positive for everybody from very difficult situations.
Well, that's actually a really good point. Wen-Ho Lee was an example. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think some of you who have heard of Sherry Chen, raise your hand if you heard of Sherry Chen. Okay, so I think, like probably a third of you guys have heard of her. I personally was in Ohio, and Sherry Chen was a, Chinese-American scientist who actually really is a part of the Ohio River region, because every year there's flooding all over that whole region. And basically the Army Corps of Engineers were based on her model and blow up dams to save lives. And she was actually, this is also another example where Sherry actually was indicted for espionage, for something that's completely public information. And so when Department of Justice tried to have a case on her, there is no case, period. So cases like that, I think there's sort of, and that's kind of interesting thing that we're, I personally, as well as actually Anthony here, Civic Leadership USA, have been trying to do programs in social justice. But Anthony, please, make some comments about, social entrepreneurship, what does that mean, and kind of some examples of that, if you will.
Good. Let's go back to the topic. And I'm so glad that CK, you bring out the venture philanthropy. My last 30 years life is around that, from foundation, from nonprofit. So I want to clarify that a lot of people thinking social enterprise or social entrepreneurship is about nonprofit, which is not. It is about two bottom line. Social entrepreneurship is you do need to make money so that you can sustainable. But at the same time, the second bottom line is you fulfill a social mission. You solve a social issue on top of making money. So that is basically social entrepreneurship about. So it can be nonprofit, it can be corporate, which you already heard the lingo that social responsibility. And that is a great way that corporate can be in part of that major force. So go back to how does it relate to Civic Leadership USA. I just tell you we train and connect civic leaders to run for public office. So we start from young. We have a national internship program nationwide. Start from high schools, junior and senior, all the way to graduate school, with 3 goals: to build relationship between local government and local community by creating placement, putting students in their office, and then build that leadership and also inspire students to actively engage. The Civic Leadership Forum is a mutual platform for everyone come together, working together to solve their local issue. As we all know, all politics are local.
Excellent. Amy?
I probably experience social enterprise and social entrepreneurship from my own experience, not so much from the policy level, but more from the implementation and personal level. There are many reasons why I went from medicine outside into public health, into nonprofit, into for-profit, into community-based programs, and now into a tech-centric Silicon Valley model of using technology for good. I think in my mind, I really agree with some of the things that other speakers have mentioned, but in my mind, the really fundamental bottom line for the social enterprise or social entrepreneurship, the core of it is that are the people's convictions clear? Is the conviction clear on what the goal outside of the financial or outside of the short-term goals are? Like, what is the long-term thing that people are really trying to strive for? And I think that's really important. I think in my own experience of experiencing it in my own team and building the business and working with other nonprofit organizations, a lot of that is really about, is that value really conveyed to the whole organization as well? So has that conviction being imparted as a part of the key value? And I think that's what really last. Not even the individual people you help today or tomorrow, but can that value be passed down to the next generation of leaders to continue the impact?
Perfect. That's a perfect setup for, we're going to get deeper dive, actually. And actually, thank you so much for Amy for that question, because we're going to do a deeper dive with each of the organizations. I have specific questions. Well, first of all, starting with CC, a specific question for CC, because CC, you personally have been inspired by many friends and others who have been very successful and who have actually given great efforts to find a better way to help build a better world, right? So how do we get enough resources to do a better job in creating a better world?
That's a good question. That's where many organizations like ours have different focuses. Like APAPA is focused on the civic political advancement for APA Americans in this country, especially for the next 2 generations, as you and your children, basically. Right. And in that, we have found that so many people want to join the program and volunteer in the grassroots level. We talked about earlier empowerment trust. That's where they are doing. They have total independent way of doing things, reach the same mission to have political advancement in America. And we make a lot of progress. Now we found out nationally that I think we're a little too slow, maybe because I'm getting old, seriously. We want to be faster, but we're so much lacking of resources as a nonprofit, especially civic political participation for Asian Americans. The reason, because our culture does not encourage, discourage us, and all talent goes into Silicon Valley in the past, all the other stuff, hardworking like me. Then the people hold political power, except David Wu, who's a very exceptional person that will not allow APA Americans participation. Make it double hard, but that means a double opportunity also. That's a good thing. So we'd like to, I don't know what's the answer to that, because the funding, the resources is very lacking to do say a bigger job. And we thank to Sandy's, CLUSA, those people continue to give so much resources to help us spread out.
Well, I'm not sure about the comment that he made about getting old, because this is CC as someone who actually have been good friends with the last few governors. And I've heard a rumor, CC, that you actually have done how many push-ups when you were hanging out with these governors and stuff. So I'm not sure about that. And I wouldn't dare to do push-ups in front of the governors or any of the government officials. So I think that I would never dare my good friend CC here, who said he's old. If you are, I'm running away from you. But anyway, on that front, Margaret, it's Asia Society as a global organization, right? What impact does social entrepreneurship have at the local level, and how do we actually play into the bigger whole?
Thank you, Chuck. And I should mention that Chuck is part of our Asia 21 Asia Society Young Leaders Program. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here today and representing and talking about Asia Society too. We are a global organization, 14 centers around the world, most recently in Tokyo and in Zurich, and we do programs all over the world. We do about 60 of them here in San Francisco and Silicon Valley on business and policy, arts and education, and we do culture programs too. But speaking to your point about global versus local, we found as we start to do more programs in Silicon Valley, there's a real appetite to understand what is happening here globally. Kevin Rudd came out. He's the former Prime Minister of Australia. He's the head of our Policy Institute. He did 6 speeches on the US-China relationship. One of them was here in Silicon Valley. We had about 300 people there, and he talked about the ways that China and the US can collaborate and work together. But he really wants to understand what's going on here. We're going to know it before he will. So for us locally, understanding what the entrepreneurs are, what all of you guys are doing here, and what you're talking about at this conference, I'm going to report back, and that's how we can make a difference here locally for our global organization.
Actually, and thanks for bringing that up. Actually, it's really interesting about that because basically the Asia 21 program, which is equivalent to the Davos program, in my opinion, it's actually better because really it's grounded in each of the local cities. I mean, Davos is great. It's about sort of global issues, but it lacks the local level of engagement. So that's why, I mean, given Asia Society, New York City, San Francisco, Houston, we pretty much have centers all over the world, and really I would encourage you, all of you who are interested in the program to apply actually in our program. But certainly, I think on that front, I personally have I've actually listened to Kevin Rudd when he was here, and also many of you guys also know my good friend Ken Fong, which is the chairperson for Committee of 100, right? And he was there with me, and I think it was just fascinating to listen to Kevin and how he really thinks that ultimately everybody's going to come to the table and work through the issues and stuff. So on that front, I think that's really kind of the important thing about how, I think a number of people looking at the issues. And I think, Anthony, on your side, given you have traveled around the country to meet the various leaders and in various level of, like social entrepreneurship, please tell us a little bit about your experience. How do we think globally but act locally?
Well, I asked that question. Think global, but act local. Sounds like hokey, but I remember when I was at my last tenure at Pew in the mid-90s, yeah, we do have 4.75 billion assets, annual grant-making budget 200 million, a little over. But compared to what it needs, I can answer to CC's, there's never enough. Will be enough. The only way is like we do better leverage each other to make it work. I'll throw out a local example. Imagine if you have a trucking company, which Andrew just talking about, go around on the last 3 to 4 days of all those expired food from the regional grocery market, supermarket, and send them to the food kitchen, cook them right away, then you save a lot of money for those who need to buy food and cook for those homeless. That's just one outright example. I want to give you one of the case study that when I did some community development in Camden, New Jersey. Anyone heard of this city? 10th worst city in the United States. If you compare it to like Oakland is Disneyland. So imagine. And doing community development there, I'm so glad that time I have an access and bring some civic leader up to Trenton, talk to John Corzine, former chair of Goldman Sachs, but he ran for governor. So I told him, you can actually make a difference by having a position in that area. What do? We create a program called EDTP, Economic Development Training Program, target to welfare candidate, give them 9 weeks of training, and transform them into small business owner. And then provide them with 2-year technical assistance, make sure they can continue and thrive. The impact is you turn a welfare candidate into a business owner that pay tax to the city. So the city see it as a win-win proposal. And also we get Campus Soup Foundation join us and then pay for the training. Yes, it is not for everyone, but we can give those who want to have a chance to shoot the brass ring and get out of that situation. And after 17 years, they still have 370-some small business happening in Camden, running strong, and become the social fabric of it. And many of you own some business, and I think you can think that way a little bit, and you can be, I borrow from Gandhi, be the change you want to see change in this world. I see social entrepreneur are change agent for the society for better.
That's actually a really good point. And David, you want to make a quick comment on that? Go ahead.
Yes, I'll do a quick follow-up. You heard Anthony's point about $200 million, and there's still not enough. And from a governmental perspective, $200 million is a relatively small amount of money. And to give you a sense of scale, the federal budget total is about $2.5 trillion. And of that, half, roughly, is for Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, which are all social benefit programs. And out of the next $1.2 trillion, roughly $600 billion are also for roughly social benefit programs. So that's a total of $1.8 trillion. Now, government is actually quite good at developing efficient mass programs. What government is not good at doing is innovation. And that's where these programs do a really, really good job of. Because in essence, they're developing a model, and the question is there a need? And can it be delivered efficiently? And is it the best model? And if the answer is yes, government can come in and scale up in a big way. And following up an innovative program is a very, very important thing for the society as a whole, because the public agencies can deliver the good programs on a much larger scale.
Right, so in other words, I think we really need a combination of government as well as the entrepreneurs here, right, to work hand in hand, because I think that's really important. Because we know that the government, even though their job is to make sure everything becomes fair and it's just, but they're not necessarily the most efficient at it. And thank you for bringing that out. Now, Amy, can you comment a little bit on that? Really kind of think globally, but act locally. I mean, if you can kind of comment on that, please.
Yeah, so our team, being an international team, my team basically have, we're a remote team with, in 6 different, at this point, 6 different cities, remote team, and we are very fortunate to have served families from across 13 different cities across mainland China, South Asia, the Greater America area, and a lot of times when we're working individually with special needs families, and you may be surprised how many things are similar across the different countries, across different cities. But there's very specific challenges that individual families face because of geographic location. And I think one of the words that Margaret had mentioned about being a bridge, I think is a really good analogy about how I think about being global yet local. There's 2 parts of a bridge. One part is the part that people really walk across, right? People that connects from one side to another. But the other one that's really important is the foundation of the bridge on the two side of the bank. Really having a solid foundation to know what is the need, what is the strength, and what is the common practice, and what needs to be changed. That to me is the in the Chinese word is called 接地气. To be 接地气, right? To understand locally what is needed on both sides before you can build a bridge that hopefully it's not just a one-way bridge of cultural colonization or value colonization, but it's really about sharing what can 2 sides bring to the table that actually benefits both sides. So I think in my mind, when we think about what we're doing, it's more the healthcare, more providing services, providing a opportunity for these families. What do they bring to the table? What they bring really is what we really draw upon, is their commitment and their commitment to their children, commitment to their families, their commitment to change, their commitment to persevere despite of all the challenges they are facing, and they're willing to push forward. And so a lot of their strength comes back to the other side of the bridge, to the team where we hold technology, where we hold expertise to say, this is what we're really working for and working towards. I think that's really important.
Okay, well, that's excellent. Hey, by the way, we're doing great on time, so I think we're going to ask one more question. We really wanted to make it interactive. So I think for some of you guys who really want to make it, have questions to ask, please think about a question that you want to ask this distinguished panel. And I'm going to ask my last question. Oh, absolutely. Yes, we're gonna ask Joe. Joe, think about a good question to ask, please. No pressure, but think about. But anyways, let me ask the question first. So my last question for the panel is: given the tremendous successes you all had or have so far, how, in the spirit of Silicon Valley, and also Andrew have aligned that too, and as well as our previous speakers. How do we scale this? How do we scale this beyond your organization? How do we all work together to make your program, the things that you do, even more successful? So, Cici, please.
That's a tough one. This social responsibility APAPA Foundation, we know is historical and cultural, political, racial, and American. And how to change that from APAC American point of view. We set a goal for 3 generations. So that means our generation, almost 30 years past. Yep. Most of us are 70s, 80s now. Yep. So we still have 2 generations, 60 years to go in our estimation. Right. If we can work together, talk about acting locals, thinking global, yes. All that's good things we talk about today here. That means this is what we said. So that's why we talk about resources for the young generation yours. So you can achieve the social justice, the political equality. And so this purpose value we talked about earlier for young generations that can be reached in your generation and beyond that. Right. So that means each one of us is APAPA is just beginning. 18 years, although set a good model in California, we still have another 49 states to go to. Yes. Texas, New York are doing well. Yes. Still many states are still beginning. Yep. So this is long haul. That is we need everybody's support. Yep. Everybody work together to talk about. Yes. So that's why every organization is working with common mission. Yep. That when we need help, we need to ask for, we need to extend our hands to help. Yep. To be on same mission again. We're building a better world tomorrow for everyone, including Asian Americans.
Right. In other words, we need to duplicate CC in Houston, in New York City, different places. By the way, I've been to Texas. I've been to Ohio.
We don't need duplication. We got you guys here, and you're here. No more. You take over.
But you have fantastic leadership in those places, by the way. Margaret.
Well, it's about working together and pulling our groups together. I found, especially in Northern California, we're all spread out doing different things with a lot of the same missions, but we should work together. Just on our prep call here, Cici, thanks to Chuck, has offered up his ranch to host our Asia 21 Young Leaders Summit, yes, which we're quite excited about. Asia Society here, we'd be willing to help fill this room. Next year, you guys are doing an amazing job. This is the 4th year that this conference has been held, but let's pool our resources to help get our audience in here too, because we can learn a lot from you. Yep. And Anthony, we are a nonprofit, and I have learned a lot about social entrepreneurship from you, but maybe we need to disrupt our business model, right? And I would love to take your class on social entrepreneurship to find out what we can be doing better as an organization.
That's excellent. And then for the fun part, which is not on the record here, but actually it would be great because the Asia 21 leaders are all over the world. I mean, we have from the U.S., from India, from China, from Japan, from Korea, all over the world. I don't think they've ever been educated on gun control issues, which is one of the most controversial issues in this country. And we'll probably, and CC has just to get one of his buddies, who's the head of highway patrols, to talk about gun control, and maybe do a demonstration of guns, maybe. Well, anyways, that would be interesting. That would be really unique. But on that said, Anthony, your thoughts?
How to make it a scale? Well, what I think is I always repeat myself. If you want to be fast, fly alone. But if you want to go far, fly together. Just using USA as the context, just Chinese Americans, about 5 million. Indian, about another 5. Filipino, another 4 point some. But altogether, APAPA group is over 22 million. From my previous regime, that the Pew Research Center say by 2040 is over 40 million. 2060 will be over 60 million. Using that number, you all can make some impact in scale. So all I want is like, now I lay out a little model that I use in my cheat sheet. Actually, I want to challenge those who are entrepreneurs, have a triple bottom line. First, economic vitality. You need to sustainable, so you need to run well. 2, environmental sustainability. Means that you're good to the world, but you're also not hurting others. Last is the social responsibility. And my hope is if one day each of the corporation has what CK mentioned, the social responsibility department, and they can coordinate and synchronize their effort, yes, we can have it in scale and do good. Thank you.
The new line. We can do it, right? Okay, next, please. Amy.
So I have two main thoughts around this. One, as an entrepreneur, you're always thinking about a solution that would impact more people. And the age of B2C, or just like consumer fad, is over. Now in entrepreneurship, it's about finding real problems, real pain points that can change people's lives. And fundamentally, that is something that we want to encourage in entrepreneurship in general. One note on that is that sometimes we think that, okay, let's start with a small model and then see if we can franchise it out. I read from a book, it's a really interesting analogy, that for big problems, if you see a problem that is already global, already really big and potentially something that needs to have a solution at scale, you don't cross over a 20-meter hole with 2 10-meter ladders, or 10 feet or 20 feet. So you can't have a solution that works for a small 6-7 meter pit hole to cross over to 20. That doesn't work. So you have to think from the beginning of what can you involve for the ecosystem. And so for us, fundamentally what we're trying to solve is the challenge that globally there's a shortage of developmental therapists in general. And so each therapist right now globally can serve at most 15 children on a monthly basis. But thinking about all the need that's out there, 1 in 6 children have developmental challenges. So can you imagine 1 in 6 children? All of you have kids here or will have kids here. 1 in 6 of them will need some developmental help. And the challenge is that with a therapist not able to care for them, so we need to think of a solution that would essentially expand the therapist's reach by 8 times. So now in our new model of including family members, we can extend therapists to reach 8 times families, and not just working with therapists in our own team, but now we're in a model where we're working with hospitals, working with schools, working with existing organizations, and working with therapists who have to drop out of workforce because they no longer because of family issues, that we can all include all these different people to be able to make sure that the community we want to help, the special needs community that we want to help, can be fully supported while empowering everybody else.
That's great. David, if you can quickly answer that question, I'm going to go down to Joe for him to ask the question for the panelists, because I've been asked to wrap up the panel pretty fast.
I'll give a very specific example of how important scaling is. I think you guys have all heard about the disastrous situation with healthcare.gov. For the rollout of Obamacare, the whole enrollment software program just crashed. It didn't work. And the government tried to develop a very, very complicated software program and roll it out all at one time. And that's in a place where social entrepreneurship and somebody who knows something about software and develops it can really do a good job. You can go on Amazon and do a whole lot of things on a website that is easy to navigate. And Amazon is simpler than buying healthcare, but there are a lot of things that are somewhat similar, especially in terms of massiveness. So in that particular instance of Obamacare and the disaster of the software program, smaller, innovative programs could have really helped in developing something that worked and then scaled up.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, my name is Joe Wang. Since I've been put on the spot, I tried to think of a question to show that I'm smart. It's been difficult, but I have been trying to work with CCN and also with Senator Chow and many other leaders to make Asian Americans work together, because Asian Americans, some of us are doing real well and some of us are not doing so hot. So when in question, look to the title. The title said, how do you make social entrepreneur for a better world? So my question is, right now, America is more divided than ever. So how would you make social enterprise to use it to make a better world?
Okay, one sentence each, please. One sentence each, because I've been asked to, we need to finish up, but I want to make sure that you guys all be able to answer that, please.
Well, I'm just partial personal response to that. Two parts in what I think needs to do. One is continue your great work, entrepreneurship and innovation, social work, the community work, so forth. The second part is that we must realize the world is not reasonable. It's not human. It is tough, cold, cruel world in competition. When you come to bottom line, it is no humanity. So we need to understand that ourselves. That means we have to figure it out without any lack of resources, that we must have political power in America. The world's largest country, the best country that we're a part of. We have come here as Asian since railroad workers to help build. But if we can have political power, decision-making power in all three branches, all of our government, like Jewish, for instance.
Well said. So in other words, what he's
then
actually...
we can, listen, then we can make sure that America is just and equal, as the founding fathers say that.
Right.
Then that time, then America will be 10 times better, the world will be 10 times better. But it takes you and I, we can't go ask people or reason with people. We have to get our people up in every part of government, three branches, and fast.